Hi everyone, welcome to the first part of Chapter 10, which is all about the region of Latin America. Here we have a picture of Buenos Aires in Argentina, a city that I was lucky enough to visit some years ago now. And so how do we define the region of Latin America? It's basically everywhere south of the United States. And the Latin implies Spain and the influence of Spain and Portugal, who were the main colonizers of the area. It is a mixture of European, indigenous, and people of African descent, often people of mixed race, which I'll talk a little bit about in later parts of the lecture. There are three subregions. The first is Middle America. The second, Middle America, which is Mexico and Central America. Then the Caribbean, and then finally South America. When we look at the physical landscape, we have subduction on the west coast and in the Caribbean. So we get mountains from that subduction, the Andes Mountains, the Sierra Madres. Mexico and Central America is mostly these highlands from these mountainous areas. And most of South America is old flat crust, excuse my typo there. So very, very old flat land, but lots and lots of rivers, unlike Russia, due to these mountains that are to the west. We also have volcanically formed island landscapes, mostly high volcanic. The Greater Antilles are old, extinct volcanic islands, while the Lesser Antilles are newer, active volcanoes. You can see here a picture of Montserrat post-eruption, which erupted, I believe, in 1995, 1996. We also have this really strong windward and leeward pattern, which I'm going to mention several times in this lecture, but basically very rainy on the western side of mountains, and this is also true for the continents, not just the islands, and very dry on the leeward side. So the mainland mountains are the Andes in South America and the Sierra Madres in Mexico. There's a picture on the left that I took of Cerro Fitzroy on the border between Argentina and Chile. These high mountains allow for relatively cool temperatures in tropical areas from being in those highland climates. And again, those mountains have a huge influence on climate, with it being much wetter on the windward side of the mountain and much drier on the leeward side of the mountains. Lots of snow melt from these mountains feed rivers in the region. And the rivers are pretty important. In Central America and the Caribbean, there are a few rivers, but you're never very far from the coast, so it doesn't really matter with concerns for shipping. In South America, you have a relatively short coastline and a big area, much like Africa, but because of these big mountains, unlike sub-Saharan Africa, you get very long navigable rivers. There's a picture of the Paraguay River in Asunción, Paraguay, which is a landlocked country. But despite the fact that it is landlocked, you have this inland port. And the Amazon River, the Amazon River basin is enormous, has an incredible amount of water in it, lots and lots of shipping happening on the Amazon River. And again, you can see just the massive size of the Amazon River. The Nile River is longer, but the Amazon River basin holds way more water than the Nile River basin does. There are no bridges over the Amazon River, either for railroad or cars. Most of the shipping through this area is done by ships. And here we can see the confluence of the Rio Negro and the Amazon, and just how wide and navigable these rivers are. The climate in the region, similar latitudes to Africa, so you get several similar climates, including that rainforest, savanna, and desert. And again, those mountains have a huge influence, that windward versus leeward side. I know I said it multiple times, but I really want to stress it. And the pattern changes over the continent of South America. And those higher mountains also allow you to have cooler temps. And so the effects of the mountains, when you look at that windward and leeward side, in southern South America, um, you can see down south when you're on the windward side, you're getting about 70 inches of rain on that windward side, and these are the westerlies that are bringing that moisture over. As you go farther north, though, the wind patterns change, and the trade winds are bringing the wind from the east, and so you wind up with a very, very dry coast. On the west coast, where in the Atacama Desert sometimes there's no recorded rainfall. So again, wet on the windward side, dry on the leeward side. And those wind directions are different at different latitudes. We also have tropical rainforests. The Amazon basin is right over that intertropical convergence zone, that band of low pressure, which allows for lots and lots of rain. Also getting lots of moisture on those trade wind coasts. The Amazon rainforest actually obviously has huge biodiversity, huge biomass. It is of massive global ecological importance. They are considered the lungs of the planet. Similar issues as in Africa with sustainability. Right, it's very hard to use these landscapes sustainably, and sometimes, especially rainforest, is cleared for ranching and farming. That's it for the first part of Chapter 10, and after this, we're going to move on to the second part.